Okay, greetings and welcome to another Fan Man Talks live stream. Today I've got a very special guest. I'm very excited. One of my favourite political YouTube channels is on with me today, Captain Swiss. How you doing, bud? You good?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thank you, man. I am, and being described as one of your favourite political YouTube channels, I'll definitely do that. Thank you.
No. I always love your channel. I always do, which we'll get into it in a minute. I will just say straight away, Swiss, your internet collection might be a little bit on and off. So far, the audio seems great. I think you're having to share your internet with someone else in the other room, right?
Yes, yeah, there's a bit of a demand on it at the moment. So I'd said to you, if it ends up too bad and you want to go just sort of audio only and it might be a bit smoother, then let me know.
Yeah, I mean the audio seems fine so far, but sometimes the picture freezes. But yeah, we'll see. But so far, so good. But yeah, today, title of the video, are the Labour Party finally united and are they electable? So we're going to talk about quite a few things today. We're going to talk about Labour conference, Starmer speech, the potential banana skins of the Al Jazeera documentary and comments from Rupa Huq. We'll get into those. But first of all, I just want to talk about your channel, Swiss, because I'm honestly not saying that just because you're here. I really love your channel because what I love about your YouTube channel, and go check it out, guys, if you haven't. The link's down below. Is basically your channel is like a circle of friends that just love politics and get together and talk about politics whenever. Usually when there's some sort of big event that's happened, you know, Boris Johnson leaving or something big happens, you get together and you talk, and you guys, you know your stuff as well. The people, your little circle that you have, really know your stuff. And I want to know how it started, really, and how how it
Well,
got to where it
well,
was
how
now.
it ended up where it did. Well, I mean, thank you. I think first of all, I'd say that it's good to have people thinking we know our stuff, and at the very least, probably most of the time that's true. And when it's not, we get corrected quick enough anyway. It's kind of evolved organically to where it's ended up as you watch it now, like you describe it, as sort of a circle of friends that we get on. It all began, oh god, about 5 years or so ago now. I'd first started doing sort of regular content for YouTube and talking about politics and stuff. And obviously that began as just me. And before I even did regular live streams, it was just pre-recorded videos. So I'd sort of sit there for 5 or 10 minutes and offer thoughts on something. And I don't know if you've ever done pre-recorded videos before, rather than just live streams, but it's so much harder. For whatever reason, it's like if you're sitting there doing a pre-recorded video and you mess up what you're saying, you go, oh, screw it. And then you go back and try again. But live streams, it's just, it is what you get. There's less
Yeah, I've
pressure
done it on
somehow.
other people's channels, but not on my own. Yeah.
But so I'd started off just doing it that way, and then gradually I got into live streaming and having guests on. And honestly, it more or less began from people who were watching the channel to begin with, and they'd say, "Oh, could I and chat to you about this, or could I chat to you about this, that, and the other." And gradually, I just built up a roster of more and more people who started off watching the channel and then became like guests and contributors on it. And I mean that just carried on for years, and we've ended up where we are now, where it's like a cast of familiar faces and characters and people that the audience actually know as the contributors as well. And we've had some people shuffle in and shuffle out over the time. I'd say that the core group of people that I get on predominantly are probably on the left or centre left, either Labour supporters or supporters of other parties, or non-aligned at the moment. But I do make an effort from time to time to get on, Liberal Democrats, Conservatives, people of other political colours as well. But that's kind of that's the centre of gravity at the very least. It's sort of like a centre-left kind of centre of gravity.
Yeah, though that's what I really like about it. You do have different opinions on there. I mean, it's one thing I've been trying to do on this channel, but it's very, very difficult, is get guests on from the other side of politics. I do hate using these right and left terms, but sometimes you just have to. It's just the easiest way to describe, because what some people deem as left or right is completely different to what someone else deems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been trying to reach out to other YouTubers, right-wing YouTubers. It's very difficult. No one wants to do it. I find, especially if they've got quite a large amount of, well, compared to me, large amount of subscribers, they don't they're too scared that they're going to get into a debate and lose face or something, you know, when you can just have a simple conversation. But that's what I love about your channel. It's basically, it's just like a group of friends. When something happens, something big happens, like I specifically remember as soon as Boris Johnson went, and other big events that have happened, I've jumped online and I've seen your chatting with your guests, and it's great. It's just like a group of friends that just get together as soon as something big happens and just chat. And like I say, you know, you guys really know your stuff. Did you have a little dive into politics yourself? Did I remember you saying?
Oh yes. Well, it was the 2019 general election. And I'd gone through. I mean, we'll get into Labour probably in a little bit, but long story very short, I went into the Labour fold sort of very infused by Jeremy Corbyn, and then over the course of a few years, I became less enthused by the party, shall we say. And then it was around about 2019. I was sort of trying to think, oh, you know, who do I want to vote for? Where do I want to? What do I want to do this election? And I thought, well, I could run myself. And if I vote for myself, at least then I'm 100% happy with the choice that I've made. You know, and I can't lie. It's not as if it was as spontaneous as that. There's always been a bit of me that's thought, oh, I would like to go into politics, like, you know, like a dream job or something to be a member of parliament. But, you know, I knew running as an independent, realistically, the chances weren't that I was going to win the thing. But for the sake of the experience of doing it and to be able to say, yeah, you know, I gave it a go. So I stood in the constituency of Stoke-on-Trent North, and when all was said and done, I came out with 322 votes, which was last place, but apparently it was fairly good for an independent. So
hey, that sounds all right.
Yeah, I was happy with it.
Yeah.
I was pretty happy. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, like I say, guys, if you haven't checked out Swiss channel, it's down below. Go take a look. It's really, really good. So the topic of today, so I might as well just go straight out and ask you the question. The title of the video, Swiss, is Labour finally united and electable?
United, maybe not quite. Electable, yes, I'd say so. That's the short answer.
Yeah.
I can give you a longer one. We can get into the longer one. Yeah.
The United we'll get into afterwards, because that's there are some potential banana skins coming up this week with the bits and pieces that I mentioned. But yeah, I was really happy with the way conference has gone so far. Keir Starmer's speech I was really happy with. Also, I've developed a bit of a bromance for Ed Miliband over the last week. So I absolutely love this guy. I love it.
I've had a real soft spot for Miliband. Like I think at the time when he was actually Labour leader, I was probably harsher on him then, and I thought, oh, he's a bit of a wet sack of potatoes. He's not the guy that I want. But in the many years since, I've kind of gone, no, that Ed, compared to most of the rest. I do quite like
I missed him. He was brilliant this week. He absolutely destroyed Jacob Rees Smog on fracking in Parliament, made him look like an idiot. And his speech at conference was really good. I do hate slogans, but they do work, I guess, don't they? His slogan for the environment is it's cheaper to save the planet than to destroy it, or something. I quite like that, and I really liked his speech on the environment. It was really good. But yeah, Starmer, I think. His speech, it was great to finally hear some policies from him, which is what people have been begging for ages. But to me, I don't know what you think. I'll get your opinion. But he's kind of throwing out things to both sides of this divide that they have in the Labour Party. He's saying a lot of things pro business, and obviously the thing with the public energy and things like this. He's kind of trying to do his best to throw a bone to each side of the Labour Party at the moment. But what was your thoughts on his speech?
I was impressed by it, and I'd probably describe myself as being pleasantly surprised as well, because pretty much since Starmer took over, you know, getting on for over 2 years ago now, I've sort of been very hot and cold on him. There's been periods of time where I thought, oh, you know, he seems very electable and he's got a sort of a prime ministerial aura around him. But then other times I've always thought he was a little bit too vague on what he had to say, and there weren't enough concrete policies being put forwards. But the last couple of months, especially this conference now that we're actually starting to get some policies, it's changed my view of him quite a bit. Because, you know, as you can imagine, as a potential voter that Labour want to try and win over, if they're throwing actual policies my way, then that's going to encourage me to vote for them possibly. Like before we get into the speech itself, what were your thoughts on Starmer when he first came along? And would you describe yourself as having sort of a transition of how you see him or not?
Well, kind of along the lines of what you just said, really, it's really stepped up a gear over the last week or so, because I've had the same opinion of Starmer pretty much for the last 2 years. I don't know anything. I can't judge him because I don't know what he wants. I don't know what his policies are. He's just been there. and that's the way I felt the last 2 years.
It kind of felt like trying to hold up a jar and capture some mist in the air or something, and then exactly. Analyze it. It wasn't tangible enough, was it?
Exactly.
You couldn't,
there was, you know, because people would ask my opinions on Starmer all the time, and I'd just say I just don't know, because he doesn't give any clue onto what his opinions are on nationalisation of things, or you know, even Brexit and things like that. He's been so vague, but now he's finally come out with some policies. And why do you think now they finally have? Because it always seemed that his tactic was that he's just gonna let the Tories implode on themselves, just step back, and then before the next election they'll bring out a manifesto and say what they're about. But now, potentially 2 years to the next election, he's now bringing out a few promises that he's got to keep. Why do you think he's suddenly done that now?
It's difficult for me to say without being in the mind of Keir Starmer. I'm inclined to think maybe when he took over as leader, he'd set out some kind of a vague plan and sort of said, right, the first year or two, I just want to kind of present myself as a different kind of leader, and, you know, get my face out there. And obviously the pandemic hit pretty immediately, so a lot of the time he wasn't able to sort of front foot things. It was more responding to what the government was doing. Do I support this? Do I oppose this? Do I want more of or less of whatever they're doing? Why now in particular? I don't know whether it was just time enough that they finally did, but it's ended up being a very good time for them to do it, whether that was intended or not. For Boris to, you know, all the drama of Partygate and Boris going over the summer, and then Liz Truss coming in and her abysmal 3 weeks that she's had so far, for them to pick this as the moment in the Labour conference to go, oh, hey, guess what? You know, I signed up to all these pledges when I first became leader, and for a very long time it looked like I'd just thrown them in the bin and wasn't going to follow them. And now maybe I'm going to do half of that stuff. And here you are. It was. I don't want to talk too much, by the way, so cut me off anytime you want to.
No.
Okay. But it was interesting what you said to me about feeling that he was like throwing bones to the left and right at the same time, because I've picked up on the same thing, that he's on the one hand speaking the language of, like, you know, fiscal responsibility, good managers of the economy, trying to sort of say that the Tories are vacant ground now with their veering off to the right with all of their tax cuts and, you know, unfunded tax cuts at that. But then on the other hand, like you say, you've got the British energy he wants to set up, sort of a national owned energy.
That really shocked me, actually.
Yeah,
it really shocked me.
I didn't expect. I mean, the last I'd heard of him in terms of any kind of a state-owned things was that potentially he was going to ditch the rail renationalisation a few months ago, and then conference comes. Not only are they doing that, I'm not sure about the post office as well. I can't remember if I'd heard that or not. Maybe, but then for this energy to come along as well, and I went, wow, that actually sounds a bit bold.
Yeah,
I can't believe I could put bold and Starmer in the same sentence together, but there we are.
But I think this is exactly what a Labour leader needs to be, because you have to just, like I say, throw bones to the left and the centre of the party. You have to. You can't just go one way. And we know that what's happened in the past with the Labour Party, that when you do go to the centre, you piss off the other side, and when you go to the left, you piss off the other side. You know, whether you like it or not, we don't have PR in this country. We have a two-party system, and the Labour Party have to appeal to such a broad audience that they have to just be somewhere in the middle of that left centre, and they have to do some policies that please the left and some policies that please the right. And I think that neatly comes round to, you know, what's been happening with this Al Jazeera documentary that came out this week, that the left side of the Labour Party are still wanting to bring down Starmer, and at a point where, you know, Labour are actually coming to a point where they're electable now, and it's I don't know. As someone that you just said at the beginning of the video that you were a staunch Corbyn fan, right? I mean, that's what really. I mean, I'd love to get your opinions on that left side of the Labour trying to bring down the party when they're finally sort of starting to get electable.
Oh, very much. I mean, I've had a long and interesting journey with probably my own politics and sort of how I felt about Labour over the years. But at the time that Corbyn first came along on the scene, sort of, you know, 2015 leadership election, Miliband had just lost that election, Tories in for another 5 years. I very much considered myself on the left at the time, and probably a shade of a radical left as well. You know, I remember, especially as a teenager and in my early 20s, you know, very sort of anti-capitalist, or we could do with some kind of a revolution or something, you know, very, very sort of bold stuff. But at the core of it, the things that I wanted the most was things like tackling homelessness, better funding public services, more houses being built, better wages for people, you know, basic Labour stuff. Yeah. And Corbyn came along, and he was all of a sudden sort of speaking a language that I was very receptive to. It was like, here comes a guy, and he's talking about all these things that I care about so easily all of a sudden, whereas the rest of them seem to hide it behind all this confusing language, you know. So that was what had encouraged me at the time to, you know, I joined the Labour Party. I paid my £3. I voted for him in the leadership election and the second leadership election after they tried to oust him after the first year. So I was very much on board. I signed up, ardent, passionate Corbyn supporter. And then I think over the course of, and this is where we get into controversial territory. You know, there may be viewers who agree or disagree with me here, which is fair enough. But I think as the years wore on the one hand, I was so incredibly frustrated by the immediate opposition to him from within the party and from the media and from basically everyone. It seemed like they were all doing their absolute best efforts to sort of not even give the guy a chance. You know, they were trying to bring him down before he'd even had a proper go at it. And obviously the 2017 election, that was a real high watermark, because Labour did way better there than anyone had anticipated. And it really felt for a little while there that we were on the cusp of, you know, oh, if the Tories just lose a few by-elections along the way and Labour pick up a few more seats, we could turn this thing around or something like that. But at the same time as that, and keeping in mind, I did think it was very unfair the way he was gone against so hard from the beginning.
Which we'll get into in a minute.
Yeah. Well, we will get into that. But there did begin to be an accumulation of decisions that he made as leader, which started to make me doubt whether he was whether or not he was the person that I had faith in to want to be the one running the show, which I know sounds funny when we compare that against Prime Minister Liz Truss here today. But that's kind of what happened. It was decisions he made in the past about controversial people that he wanted to associate with. It was the way that he tried to handle certain scandals that were thrown at him, which, you know, understandably were very difficult in the first place anyway. But then as a Leave voter in 2016, the sort of that I was hoping for Labour, whatever form of Brexit they ultimately got behind, was that they would respect the result of that vote and said, yes, okay, this is what the country voted for. This is what we're going to do. So it was increasing sort of doubts about the Corbyn ship, and then the policy on the second referendum they had, which kind of put me off Labour. And that was round about the point where I decided, well, I'm not voting Tory. Nothing in this world is ever going to get me to vote Tory. But in that election, I thought, okay, I'll run myself and sort of stand on a platform that I like.
Yeah. Starmer actually, I thought Starmer done quite well on Brexit in his speech. Actually, I mean, it's obvious I'm a massive Remainer when it comes to Brexit, but he was trying to appeal to the Brexit voter. He was saying, look, you know that I didn't want Brexit, but look at the Brexit that you've got. This is not what you voted for when you voted for Brexit. You did not vote for our workers' rights to be scrapped and all these things. And I thought he actually done quite well to convince those Brexit voters that left the Labour Party to come back in that speech.
Yeah.
Actually, I think he done quite well.
That I mean that. Oh, sorry.
No, go.
I was just quickly, yeah, that did strike a chord with me. And you know, Brexit in a way is pretty much in the past now, so it's no longer a metric that I'm measuring everyone against, going, oh, where are they on Brexit? That will decide whether I like them or not. But it was reassuring and interesting to hear him sort of go, right, okay, you know, we've left now. The debate is no longer about trying to let's rejoin or whatever. But was this the Brexit you voted for? And couldn't shape or size depending on who was in power doing it. And the whole point of it is, if you're not part of that economic political institution and you're an independent country and you've got great autonomy and freedom for making certain decisions for your own country that you didn't necessarily have as part of a larger club, the question is, what do you do with that? And the answer from the Tories has obviously been, well, we're going to deregulate, we're going to threaten workers' rights, we're going to pump more sewage into the rivers, we're going to, you know, they're going to do all the worst possible things you could imagine they do with it. So when Starmer sort of said exactly what you just quoted there, he sort of said, you know, you voted for Brexit, but is this what you wanted from it?
Yeah.
This sure as hell isn't.
Whichever way you voted, no one wants what is going on right now. Brexit,
no, exactly.
And it would actually be quite interesting, actually, because maybe we'll do it for another video or something, Swiss, another time where we talk on Brexit, because I'd love to know the ins and outs of Lexit or whatever you know, the equivalent.
Yeah, sure.
It might make an interesting video, and I'm sure we'd have a level-headed chat about it, because I mean, obviously, you know, that I'm massively Remain, and the predominantly most of my audience are. I mean, my YouTube channel got quite big with my early Brexit videos, slating Brexit, and the core of my audience are. So it would be quite good to have do a video about that at some point, actually, where we discuss that. I've been promising my audience a video with my Brexit voting dad at some point, which would be quite good fun, which will happen at some point.
Right, I see. Yeah, no, I mean, it is the thing. I think that the way the country got after that vote was so awful that we ended up with these two very. It wasn't everybody who voted Remain or Leave, but there was a subsection of them who got so incredibly tribal about the thing that they really did think that the other side had, like, literally the worst intentions in mind.
Yeah. Oh, that was me. That was me.
That was you.
Yeah, definitely. I got very, very tribal, very, very tribal about it.
I mean,
I've calmed down a lot. I've calmed down a lot, and starting to get a bit little. But the most important thing is no one. That's the important thing to know, and that's what Starmer was getting across. No one wanted this Brexit that we've got. No one wanted it, and I think he done really well on that. But yeah, we're digressing slightly. But
sorry. Very final point I'll make, if anything, to the benefit of your viewers as well. You know, I voted Leave in 2016, but I voted Labour in 2017. You know, my eye Brexit would have been one conducted by the Labour Party, not one done by the Tory Party. And then obviously Labour government
also, it's important to know that you voted Labour in 2015, right?
Yes.
So, you know, the Tories were promising a referendum and Labour weren't, if I remember rightly, in 2015, right? It was only the Tories promising a referendum.
Yes, that's right.
So you were quite happy to go along with a Labour Party that was still going to be pro-European.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, at the time in 2015, I hardly knew anything about the EU, for one thing.
No one did.
No,
I certainly
exactly.
Didn't.
Yeah,
I never knew the bloody ins and outs of trade from the. Suddenly, everyone decided that the general public should make these informed decisions about trade and everything. I didn't know bugger all about the ins and outs of the EU before 2015. But yeah, what a different world it would have been if Ed Miliband had won in 2015.
They still keep going back to that tweet that Cameron sent in the election campaign. You can choose stability with me or chaos with Ed Miliband. And people are always going back and going, oh, I wish I'd picked the chaos. What does that make this? But yeah.
Oh, hilarious. So Starmer, right now, I think it's all pretty clear that right now, if there was an election, Labour would win by a landslide. What are they up in, like 30 odd up in the points or something in the latest poll or something crazy like that?
Yeah, we've had 2 polls that have come out in the last couple of days putting Labour at least 30 points clear of the Tories.
Exactly. So now, they're certainly, everyone can agree, are electable. So what I want to talk to you about and what I want your opinions on is how much damage can the left side of Labour do? So we've had this current Al Jazeera documentary that is, shone a light on some serious things that happened during Jeremy Corbyn's tenure. The lies and deceit, the lies about anti-Semitism are awful. And some examples on this video. I've watched the first part, but I haven't watched any of the others. There was a Brighton councillor that got accused of anti-Semitism, and then he got tons of hate online and death threats, and he had to, some really, really nasty, horrible stuff that happened. But it's it comes when I watched this documentary, I thought this is even more reason for PR, because the two parties are just trying to they're just too big, and they're trying to appeal to too many sides. It screams to me that the Labour Party is two different parties. There's a left and a centre, and they're going to squabble till one wins. And each side of the party thinks they're fighting the good fight. So if you think you're fighting the good fight, and you think Jeremy Corbyn is the worst thing to happen to the Labour Party, you're going to use all tactics under you that you can to oust him and get him out. But it was disgusting what happened, but now we're actually at a place where the Labour Party are electable. So, and the left of the party are obviously still very bitter about this, and understandably so. Like I say, some of this stuff was really shocking in this documentary. And I always like to take everything I watch with a pinch of salt. That everyone's got an agenda that's putting together a documentary, and they're coming from it very, very one-sided. So I don't want to blindly believe every single word that I see on a documentary that's been put together. But it's very damning, and I understand why the left side of the party is feeling quite bitter about this. But what do they want to do? Do they want to bring down the Labour Party at a time that they're starting to actually become electable? I know that they want something that's drastically different to what the Labour Party is, but I always find that it needs to be one step at a time. And the very, very first step is just get the Tories out. Once the Tories are out, you can maybe start building a Labour Party that we all want. But I think what the left side of the Labour Party, they just want everything right now. And I don't think that's possible. First, we need to get the Tories out and have a Labour government. Quite a lot to digest there, but I want your thoughts on what damage the left of can they actually bring down this electable? We've seen in the polls a very electable Labour Party.
Well, if I could speak on my own experience of it and then sort of use that to answer the question. What's tricky with this is that during the time that a lot of this sort of stuff covered in the Al Jazeera Labour Files documentary was going on, I was still sort of ideologically within that left of the party, Corbyn camp, etc. So I can totally sympathise with like the grudge a lot of them hold, because I was there with them at the time. What's trickier now looking back on it is because I've described myself these days as probably just more of a social democrat than a democratic socialist, if we might want to make that kind of division. I ultimately viewed the whole experience as sort of like I believe for many years the side of the argument that says, what's the point of Labour winning power if Labour's not distinct enough from the Tories, if we're not going to really have that radical change and bring about some serious improvements to the country? There's so much that could be done. Why are we only ever offering sort of piecemeal things and little changes around the side and everything? And that's why, you know, Corbyn had that appeal, because it was very drastic change that it was offering. It was, you know, it was very unfair, especially on the Labour supporters as well, that we never felt that we got a fair crack of the whip when that was going on. That it was kind of,
you're right. I think that's what it's about. Yeah, not getting a fair crack of the whip.
But all of that in mind, so, you know, through 2015, 16, 17, etc., I was right there with them, and I thought it was appalling the way that they were trying to do Corbyn down the whole time, and it was quite amazing how close they got in the 2017 election. It was round about the time that they'd sort of, the Labour and Corbyn had sort of lost me, and I'd sort of drifted off to my own direction I was going in. I sort of looked at it through a different pair of eyes in a way. And it sort of made me realise, as much as the popular support that Corbyn had amongst parts of the Labour base were, out there in the wider country, the appeal was not the same at all. And I know that there would obviously be Corbyn supporters who will say, oh, well, a lot of that was down to the way that the media represented him. And, you know, there were things that were blown up which were very unfair, and they never gave him a fair chance. So it made it harder for him to succeed. And I think all of those things are true in part, but probably the dividing line now between me and probably people who'd still describe themselves as like, you know, ardent Corbyn supporters is, I think that there are some people who didn't want to necessarily learn any lessons from the 2019 defeat. There wasn't, from some people, a sense of reflection of going, okay, well, why is it we've lost so badly? We were offering everyone the moon on a stick, basically. All these fantastic policies of nationalisation and higher spending and investment and different services and all the like. Why is it that they didn't go for that? Was it just Brexit? Was it just that bits of the public didn't like Corbyn? Was it, you know, a lot of people just going, oh, well, you know, it was the media. The media was talking us down, so the public didn't vote for us. That's what it was. And that's where it got to me, where I kind of thought, well, my view of it had moved on a little bit over time. I thought and I hate this because the younger version of me would absolutely despise me sort of quoting Tony Blair in any kind of way. But when that sort of era of Labour politics came along, and there's a good and bad in the Blair years, don't get me wrong, but the core message of that being, you know, you've got to win power first. You need to get into power. That's the most important thing. You've got to win the public on side. And then any change you want to make has to be within the context of, hey, look, we're electable. Yeah. It made me realize that, you know, there will be people that whatever is being offered short of socialism or social, you know, or democratic socialism or what have you, will never quite be enough. You know, if it doesn't hit that mark, then it's just not good enough. And I know that some people, you know, again, rightly, as I say, very bitter about what happened to Jeremy Corbyn under those years, where he was basically charged from day one, and the fact that the Labour left ultimately relinquished power and control of the party. But at the situation that we're in now, you've got, like we've said, we've got Labour ahead in the polls by 30 points. You know, it was a meme, wasn't it, for years and years? Any other leader will be 20 points ahead because of the way that was being thrown at Corbyn. And then everyone sort of went, oh, well, you know, why isn't Starmer 20 points ahead? Well, Starmer's 30 points ahead now. You know, times have changed. Things have moved on a little bit. And I'd say, you know, of course, Starmer's gone back on some of those pledges when he was elected, but when he got in, I never suspected for a moment he was going to be full-blooded Corbyn either. The sort of realpolitik of it, in a way, is like, in that context, appealing to the Labour membership, you had to play left, much in the same way that in the Tory leadership election we just saw, Rishi Sunak did his Faustian pact with the devil and sold his soul and started leaning into all the cult stuff as a desperate grasp to try and win support against Liz Truss, and that didn't even pan out for him because the membership hated him. But there's always music that you've got to play to if you try to win a leadership contest. But I realise I'm doing a really long answer here, so I will shut up in just a moment. But I think ultimately where we are at the moment is it looks like there's a really genuine aspect of Labour getting into power. And being able to affect some change for the better, meaningfully better than what the Tories are offering. I know that for some people out there, it still will not be enough. you would still like the full pack of Corbyn era policies, or further for that matter. But I would say, by and large, of course, there are going to be people who are always either within the Labour fold or without it, or who are going to remain sort of very much opposed to Starmer or hold that grudge for what happened under the Corbyn years. And, you know, their politics is their own. Nobody's here to try things. You must believe this instead. But it's like the situation we're in at the moment is this is what's on offer. This is what's on offer. It's starting to look a little bit better than it was looking a couple of years ago with Starmer. And it's got a very realistic prospect of beating Truss or whoever's leading the Tories at that point.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I was going to say your original. Sorry, I didn't answer your original question though. Your original one was can the Labour left derail it? I don't think they can or will in a meaningful way. Like the Labour conference just gone. I think the 2021. You know, there was heckling and all sorts of stuff like that, and then this one just gone. It was largely a united front. I don't know if they were like banning all the Momentum members from entering the chamber, like the conference hall or something. I've got no idea, but it seems to me that probably enough people have been won over that the continuing opposition is probably a bit like residual. It's probably not going to have enough force to derail Starmer, even if they wanted to be honest.
Yeah, I feel every single topic that I talk about on politics, I do sound like a broken record sometimes. It always seems to come back to PR and our voting system, because I think that's what you have to understand with the Labour Party. If we had a PR system, the Labour Party you could split that in two, and that could probably be a forming government. You'd have the centre of the Labour that might win the majority, and whatever left faction comes off will support them in a coalition. But we don't have that. We can't vote for that. We have first past the post, and we have a Labour Party that has to appeal to that broad audience of both sides of the Labour Party, the left, the right. And yes, we tried Corbyn, and I know he didn't get a fair crack of the whip. And Swiss, I was there with you, mate. I think we had a very similar journey in our political views. I was, very Corbyn at the start. I mean, I lived in central Brighton before. I live in East Brighton now, but I was in central Brighton, so I voted Caroline Lucas, Green Party all the way.
Right.
I was there.
You are in like the left-wing progressive heartland, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But voting Green Party in the centre of Brighton is basically your Labour vote anyway, really, because they're going to win every single year. But I was there with you. I had exactly the same experience when Corbyn came along. I was like, finally, someone's talking about these real issues and things that we really care about. But the country just won't go for it yet. And yes, you can say the media. Yes, you can say he didn't get a fair crack of the whip, and he didn't, and he had massive media attacks. But I just think that sort of style of social democracy is. People, the English elder pensioners and stuff, it scares the shit out of them. It really does. It does. For whether you're right or wrong, it just doesn't. And I think that sort of style of politics needs to be eased in. You need to grease up first, okay? You can't just go straight in. That sort of thing. Yeah. And with Jeremy Corbyn, it didn't work. Yeah, no one wanted it. And yes, he didn't get a fair crack. And so with the system that we've got Starmer right now, and he is the one that is looking the level pegging. The Tories are the extremists now. It's switched round, isn't it? Before, Jeremy Corbyn Labour Party were the extremists. They're the extreme left. Well, everyone knows that this Liz Truss government right now is extreme right. No one wants these policies, this government. No one wants these tax policies. Go out in the street anywhere and tell me that ask someone if they think it's a good idea to give Cristiano Ronaldo another 25 grand a week, because that's what's happening with the 45% tax going down to 40% for everyone over 150. You're just giving every single footballer has just got another 25 grand a month. No one wants this. No, it's insane.
No, not at all. Extreme. And nobody even voted for it in the first place. Exactly. Like the country, and I say the country under a first past the post system. 2019, Boris Johnson's Tories got into power with a certain manifesto and a certain set of things they said that they're going to do. this Liz Truss agenda's a total Trojan horse. Nobody voted for this. Nobody wanted these kind of tax policies. It's far, even for quite a lot of Tories I know. They think that Liz Truss has gone too far, and yet we've ended up with it because, you know, Boris goes, Truss is in place. Though an election doesn't have to be called, and now theoretically we're stuck with her and her policies for 2 more years.
Well, they're finally showing their colours. I mean, everyone knows that they've always only been there for the 1%, the mega rich, but I mean, and now they're showing it, but I think they've forgotten that the 1% of the country is not going to vote you back into power. You need the other. No. But the important thing is before. I mean, obviously the Tories have been imploding for a while, but before Labour were only slightly gaining because they were the opposition. But now, I think Starmer is being seen as someone steady. He looks like a prime minister. The other guys, they look just insane. They're absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts.
I mean, Liz Truss is the prime minister, and she doesn't feel like a prime minister.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you think these guys on the left of the Labour Party can cause much damage? I mean,
I don't think that anything that the left of the Labour Party is going to say or do is going to derail Labour winning power.
And what do they want? What do they want? Do they just want Starmer out and a new Labour leader that's more like Corbyn?
I think they want a return to the direction of travel under Corbyn. Basically, they want. Labour was veering back then through sort of, you know, democratic socialism towards actual socialism. This is obviously the segment of support, because, you know, later they always describe Labour as a broad church, don't they? They always go, oh, you've got people all the way from sort of like the neoliberal centre all the way down to the closeted communists or what have you, and everybody in between. And I think just for this, whatever this particular set of people is, it's obvious that, you know, they wanted much more left-wing policies, and they got a glimpse of that with Corbyn, and they don't trust Starmers to go anywhere near the sort of stuff they want. But maybe this ties into what you were saying before about, you know, Labour is effectively 2 or more camps of people stuck together within the same party because of first past the post. So I think they want socialism at the end of the day. And because what's on offer is basically a mild social democracy, then it's not cutting it for them. That's my best guess for you.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, the first past the post, it's the same with the Tories as well, really. I mean, they have to accommodate 2 wings of the party. It just so happens that they've been in power for the last 12 years. So when the right of the party takes over, you know, we're getting those politics. They haven't got to vote anyone in. They're already in power. So they have to accommodate the centre, and, you know, centre conservative politics. I mean, is there even a single MP now? Have they just completely ousted all of those sort of centre conservative MPs out, and now you don't just have to be far right to be in the party? I don't know.
Well, I mean, it comes down to that thorny issue of what we decide we call right and left, and where we place these terms, because it always comes down to where you are on the spectrum is the way that you view everything else. But I mean, certainly if you think about the Tories as they were under Cameron, I mean, even then, you know, the austerity was bloody awful, but there were things that you could point to amongst them that you could say, okay, they were at least closer to whatever the centre ground of the country was then than this present incarnation. That's why the Tories have plummeted down to 20% in the polls right now. They've totally abandoned what the centre ground of the country is, which is, you know, we want help with our energy bills. We want to feel that we've got a fair crack of the whip at improving our lot in life. We don't want to see mega rich people being treated incredibly unfairly. You know, getting all these. You know, why are the handouts going to the people who've already got all the money, as opposed to the people who've got nothing?
Like Ronaldo, like I just said.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the trouble. I think that the Tories have abandoned the centre ground. They have given in to the very right wing of their own party. And unsurprisingly, even if on average this is a country that tends to vote Tory and maybe overall is centre or centre right, the point is this is still further than what that middle line is. They've gone way too far. Labour look like that middle ground now. Yeah.
Well, I think this country, like centre ground politics and votes in centre ground politics because of the voting system. I know I keep coming round to the same thing. Like I say, I sound like a broken record, but every single topic I discuss always seems to come down to this. And our politics is the way it is because of our voting system. Starmer is I think he's categorically declined ever going down a PR route. I know every interview that I've seen with him, he's always dodged the subjects like the plague on PR. A couple of people I spoke to said that they heard him say that he'd never do it, but you can't take that off the table because that might be a weapon that he needs to use to get into power if he needs to put that policy forward. But I could also see the demand for PR is very slowly growing. I could even see a situation where, I mean, obviously if Starmer gets in, it's going to be under first past the post anyway, but maybe after a few terms, he could leave with PR being introduced with a later Labour government in his term. But I think it will eventually have to happen. But I don't know. What's your thoughts? Because
I mean, I'd like to think it will eventually have to happen, and maybe a few months back when, like, you know, before the massive surge for Labour in the polls, the conversation about the next election was maybe Labour will just get over the line. Maybe they'll need the Lib Dems to help them get over the line, and obviously then the Lib Dems have a bit of leverage to try and force them into like a PR referendum or something like that. Fundamentally, here's the thing. You know, PR by its very nature benefits the two big parties, because if you're already one of the big parties, then you're going to do better under PR than if you're the Greens or, you know, somebody else like that. So there's been sort of a vested interest in both Labour and the Tories over decades to preserve PR because it keeps them in that spot as the two big parties.
First past the post? Sorry, you were saying.
So I saying PR? But my mistake. Yes. That can be a bit confusing. No. You know what I mean. So yeah, the Labour and the Tories benefited from first past the post, and because of that, they had a vested interest to keep first past the post. And now the other problem is that the Tories benefit slightly more than Labour do from first past the post as well. That's another little element to it. But yeah, what you're seeing at conference is interesting. That, you know, for the first time, I think you've actually had the members and the unions and pretty much all the major groups that make up those who vote all saying, yeah, we would like PR.
That's it's got popular opinion in the Labour Party, but. Yeah. I think they're going to do a vote on it, and Starmer says that he's going to ignore the vote. Or I think it's still got to be in his arsenal at some point, because he may need it if in 2 years' time public opinion really changes on PR and people are really pushing for it. He may be forced to put it in the manifesto for the next election.
I honestly don't know where he's going to go on PR. That's my honest answer for you, because so far what he's given is sort of a vaguish, we want to strengthen democracy in the country or something, and what that actually ends up meaning, I don't know.
But it's, like I say, it's always an issue. It always comes back to our voting system. It's what makes this country so unique, and you can't really talk about politics without talking about the voting system. But going back to Labour, another thing I wanted to ask you, Swiss, is what do you think? So currently, Labour looking fantastic. If there was an election tomorrow, they'd win it. What do you think to the actual members, the potential front benchers of a Labour government? We seem to be getting a few cock-ups from some of these. I wanted to talk about Rupa Huq with her comments about Kwasi Kwarteng this week. What did she say? Superficially a black man or something? She said, "Do you see?"
She said she called him superficially a black man, and I think she called quite a few other cabinet members in the Tory party sort of saying that they were brown but superficially so, or things like that. So it was all very.
We seem to have quite a few of these. Obviously, in the part we had Angela Rayner calling Tory scum, and I know she'd done it in a reception area or something, but she was accused of doing it in Parliament as well, wasn't she? A Tory member was speaking, and if I remember rightly, he finished the speech and he said, did you just call me scum? I mean, it would be a very dramatic, if it was a lie, it would be a very dramatic lie for him to have to make. David Lammy didn't condemn the comments from Rupa Huq.
He said,
there always seems to be. don't want to go as far as saying Labour take 1 step forward, 2 steps back, but it seems whenever they do take a step forward, these sort of things happen. And I guess the main question I was coming to is what do you think that the Labour cabinet will be good enough and they're intelligent enough people to actually form a government that can really do good? I mean, Angela Rayner, to me, I like her. I think she's probably an outstanding MP and really cares about her constituency and cares about people. But I don't know. I have no idea whether she's a super intelligent woman that, if she's health secretary, can turn around the NHS or something. I don't know whether the Labour Party have got the most intelligent people at the front at the moment.
I mean, I can say unequivocally, I think they've got better people than the Tories have on their front team at the moment. That's
number one, they care.
One mark in their
favour.
Number
one.
Yeah.
Number one, they actually care. I think.
I think on the Rupa Huq comments about being superficially black or whatever, I think it's unfortunate that there is like a segment of people. There's like a vein of thought amongst some people on the progressive left, which kind of says that you need to think the way that we think and have the same values that we have. Otherwise, you're a traitor to the group you're in. You're a class traitor or a race traitor, even if they wouldn't use those words. But the idea that, oh, you're a black man or you're an Indian man or whatever, but you're a conservative. You're not really black. You're not really Indian. That I think is a bit of a problem, because I think
heard
that
the same quotes about Patel. There's the same quotes about her when she was Home Secretary. I heard people calling her a coconut. She's brown on the outside, white in the inside. There's a lot of
And I think, I mean, when we think about racism, we think of it in what I'd call, the traditional sense of kind of going, look, as a white person, say, looking down on people of other colours and thinking you're better than them, or disliking them because of what colour they are, or attributing bad things to them just because of what colour they are, that kind of thing. But there is also a side to it of kind of believing that people need to stay in a certain lane. You are this color, you must act this way, you must think this way because of what color you are. And whether or not the intentions behind it, you think that they're good, you think that they're progressive, whatever, it's still part of that same problem of viewing people by the color of their skin rather than what it is that they say and do.
Yeah, it's just strange because, I mean, you've got so many areas that you can attack Kwarteng on at the moment. I mean, his tax policies are so insane. You don't need to go down the race route. What?
No,
you don't need to. And I see these cock-ups from a lot of Labour MPs that, like I say, it's not as dramatic as Labour taking 1 step forward, 2 step back, but it seems at least they take 2 forward and 1 step back, and then there's always one of these comments.
I do honestly think it is something that Starmer needs to get a good grip of, and kind of say, look, we're pretty close to the prize now of getting into government. Stop it with these loose-lipped comments where you're calling people scum in Parliament, or you're saying racist things just because you don't like the politics of another person, because we wouldn't sit for it if it was the Tories, and we don't sit for it if it's the Tories, and likewise, I think he's got to get a grasp on it. But again, overall, I don't think at the moment there's a risk of Labour being derailed by this. I think as long as they don't allow it to become a problem, and I mean, like we saw with the Rupa Huq thing, she made those comments on one day. I think by the next day, she'd said she had nothing to apologise for. Then the whip was suspended, and then she apologised. So action was taken relatively swiftly on that. But it was just a real shame, I suppose, that Lammy was interviewed and he sort of wanted to completely ignore the issue, say that you've got nothing to apologise for. I think that was a bit concerning to me. Yeah.
It just seems strange to me. You think these guys would know the score? I mean, come on, you're in politics. I mean, don't be. It just seems amateur throwing these comments around. It really does. But yeah, generally overall, I think it would take a hell of a lot for to derail Labour's momentum at the moment. It really would. Just massively because of the way that the Tory party has been and conducted themselves over the last week, and the fact that they're putting through policies that no one in the country wants at all. Not a single person is on board with this.
And I think that a lot of what we'd had up until the last month or so wasn't so much support for Labour. It was, dissatisfied Tories. It was Tory voters who were unhappy with Boris or Partygate or Pincher or things like that. And they'd moved into the don't know column. And relatively that made Labour look better. I think just recently, as of the conference, as of Liz Truss, we're actually genuinely starting to see support moving from people who'd voted Tory to Labour, which is something a bit better than what they'd had before, because it's not just the weakness of the Tories now, it's beginning to be the strength of the Labour Party's pitch as well. So
we're about 5 minutes away. Unfortunately, I'd love to talk to you all night, but I've got to go at 6 o'clock. But I want to just ask one more thing. What do you think to these theories about what the Tories are doing at the moment? Because there's theories that they're doing crash and burn tactics, that they know they're not going to win the next election. They're going to try this strange, extra capitalist tax policies, this experiment. They're going to give it a go because they know that they're not going to win in the next election, and they're just going to implode the economy. So it's just so god awful a challenge for Labour to try and fix when they get back, that in 5 years' time the Tories will be electable again. Have you heard people been talking about this?
I've heard a lot of competing theories about what's gone on in the last few weeks. I don't believe that the Tories have deliberately ruined the economy to make it a harder task for Labour.
I think that I think that one is a stretch. I mean,
that one seems a stretch, but I do think, first of all, that assuming Liz Truss's view was, okay, I've got 2 years left on the clock, I think that she immediately got in and she wanted to front load her premiership with all of the really controversial, unpopular shit first, like the tax cuts for the incredibly wealthy. She probably thought, right, I'll do this now, I'll get it out the way, and everyone will forget about it in 6 months, and then I can throw them a few goodies before we get to the next election or something. But they seem to be banking on this idea of, you have all these tax cuts for the very rich and for the businesses and the corporations, and bringing back the bankers' bonuses and all the rest of it. And they're hoping it will kind of put a booster jet on the economy, and suddenly all this money sloshing around will be spent in the economy, boost GDP and all the rest of it. But I feel like it's built on stilts. I don't think it's a solid basis to be saying we're going to try and improve the economy and improve the lot for lots of people, because it is a revival of trickle down economics, and it doesn't.
They generally believe in it. Do you think they generally believe that it's going to work?
I think some of them do. I think some. It's hard to tell, obviously. I think some of them genuinely do believe in it, and perhaps others just kind of think maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but I'll be all right, Jack, and I'll get a bit more money out of it as well. And then there's probably a fair
all their donors and everything. And
exactly. And there's probably a few Tories as well who cut very sort of tragic figures right now, who are kind of along for the ride. They're kind of boxed in and going, oh, I don't really believe in what they're doing here, but we can't be seen to be getting rid of another prime minister so soon. I guess I'll keep my mouth shut and see how it pans out.
Well, that's the thing. The talk of Liz Truss going already. They can't, surely. I mean, I know that there's obviously a lot of Conservative MPs that are not happy with this. Really, really not happy with this. I don't know what they were expecting when they all voted for her, but they're really not happy with this. But they can't do another leader. Surely they can't. They can't go for another leader. They have to stick with what they've decided now. They have to.
It's a rock and a hard place, because on the one hand, the public has already given a very clear verdict on Truss and her agenda. They're 30 points behind in the polls. Yeah. I don't think it's going to improve that much for them. But you're right. If they then take the action they need to, which is to get rid of Truss and put someone a bit better, a bit more centre ground, a bit more competent in, then come the charges. Well, hang on a minute. You've given us 3 prime ministers in 3 years. What the hell's going on? So they're screwed.
You're right. It's weighing up the two options, isn't it? They stick with her, or they quickly nip it in the bud. They're like, shit, okay. get someone in,
Yeah.
and then we got 2 years, and hopefully the fact that we've gone through about 5 prime ministers in a certain amount of time, well, the public will be less happy with than what our tax policies are. But anyway, Swiss, I got to go, bud. Really great talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Please, guys, go check out Swiss's channel. The link's down below. And yeah, maybe we could do another video discussing Lexit and a little Brexit discussion maybe at some point. I think a lot of my viewers would be quite interested in that.
Yeah, come on again and discuss our Brexit differences. I'm sure we can do it civilly and constructively, which is always what we like to see, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah.
If you spoke to me about 2 years ago, it wouldn't have been civil, but I've
just as well I'm speaking to you now.
I would have been a tribalist Remainer that would have wouldn't have been nice to talk to. But yeah, we could definitely have a civil conversation on that. But yeah, really enjoyed it, bud. Definitely come on again, and yeah, we'll definitely do this again. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
So I'll just say to the audience, thanks for viewing, thanks for tuning into my live streams. This is still new to me, live streams. I haven't done too many, but I'm getting better, and I know that I'm not great at checking the comments and the chat on the sideboard, which is something that I'm going to improve on, because I can see there's been some really good discussions in there. But future, step by step, let me just get good at just talking with guests first, and then I'll start doing the thing. How do you deal with that, Swizzy? Or comments, because you're engaged in a conversation, and then you've got comments on the side, and it's
a bit of a manic rush sometimes, especially when I've got a lot of guests on. I usually have to shout at them and say, right, we're doing comments, shut up, and then spend a minute or two railing them all off very quickly.
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's what I'll have to do then. That's a good shout, actually. Just dedicate a bit of time to comments, and I'll do that. But I will get better, guys. But yeah, thanks for watching, and see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.